This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Caitlin Pyle, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Pyle, and I'm here today with Anung Vilay. She owns Courageous Creativity, a place for introverts and homebodies, just like me, to grow and have more adventures. She has fun, quirky apparel, the podcast, The Introverts Bubble. Super excited to talk to you about being an introvert. And she also has digital downloads to help with introverts and homebodies like me. So welcome to the show, Anung.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Where are you joining us from today?
Twin Cities, Minnesota. I like saying that because I've moved so much that I've been like in almost every city in the Twin Cities pretty much.
Nice. So wait, hold on. There's Twin Cities, so doesn't that mean there's two?
So Twin Cities
right?
means Minneapolis, St. Paul, but when you talk about that, it's like the surrounding area as well. So it could be like Bloomington, Richfield, Rosedale, Southtown, like all those areas right there. So it's a big area that's the actual cities and the surrounding suburbs.
Nice. Okay. I had no idea what you don't know, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Anung, tell us about yourself. What do you do? What is Courageous Creativity?
Well, it started off as a blog more for myself to kind of get myself out there. I wanted to build it to have it as my own business with it, but I just kind of wanted to slowly find what it was. So I kind of made it about introverts because that's what I am. And I felt like at that point it was holding me back. And as one of the things that I did, I had a friend who wanted to try some aerial classes, but like too scared to try because she was so worried about looking stupid. So she asked me to do it instead. And so I started to do it and fell in love.
So what is, for people who are listening and they don't know, what do you mean when you say aerial class? What is that?
Aerial is like those giant silks. You see people going in the air and doing tricks and stuff.
Yeah.
So I do some of those things. Like at first I started doing what they call a hammock. So it's just one giant silk that's put into like a hammock thing for you to do moves and things. And so when you first start out, you're barely like 2 feet off the ground for safety.
Very, very cool. And so you fell in love with that. And as you were falling in love with that, you realized you wanted to wear better clothes for it. Is that what happened?
Yeah, because at that time, that's part of circus. Everyone wears very bright and almost obnoxious colors and patterns.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for women like me who are a bit more curvier to actually have stuff like that. So all I had was like black, gray, and blue. So I decided to design my own and start wearing them there. And then people wanted the same designs I had, so I started selling them on my site. And that's how my apparel line kind of got started. I keep making stuff that all the circus people like to wear.
Awesome. And tell me about how your podcast, The Introverts Bubble, how did that come to life?
Well, it started off with a different name, which got stolen in trademark land underneath me. But I got a little tired with writing. I am not a great writer. I've learned that after years of trying. And I had a couple friends who started it, and I've been listening to them a little more over the last summer. I'm like, yeah, I'll just try. I can talk to myself. I do it all the time. And that's kind of how I got started on it. It was just kind of a extension of my blog to give people more ways to hear from me, learn new things. I do have show notes so people can read it if they don't want to listen to a podcast, but they have the option for the podcast.
I love that. And yeah, that's why we always record. We record our podcast, but then we also have every episode transcribed because ironically, I'm one of those people who doesn't really listen to podcasts and much rather read anything, read something. And so, but I listen to my audience because so many people listen to podcasts and I didn't get it. I was like, what is the deal with podcasts? Why do you want me to do a podcast? I didn't even listen to podcasts, so I didn't understand. But when people are asking for something, it's just like with your leggings, people wanted to buy the leggings that you created. And so that's how you started your apparel line. You got to give the people what they want. And a lot of times, if you don't know what they want, you just got to go ask them, right? And so if they don't come up to you and say, hey, Anung, I want those things, then you can always go and ask them, hey, what is it that you guys want from me? You know, whether it's on your blog, your podcast. And so what's that like for you as a podcaster and an introvert? Your inner introvert is just mad at you every time you put something out into the world. Is that how it works?
Yeah, usually I put headphones on so I can't quite hear myself when I'm talking. or especially my dog's there, so I look like I'm talking to him. He stares at me the whole time, kind of like I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it helps. And so I partially can't hear myself talking. I don't do much editing at all, so I don't have to rehear it. And then I send out my show notes to someone else to do it. So it's kind of like, I have no idea what I sound like out there until someone tells me like, hey, you're editing for like the intro to your main part. need to be a little smoother. I'm like, okay, I'll fix that. I'm not listening to it. Someone needs to tell me.
Yeah, exactly. Once I'm done recording my episodes, that's it for me. And other people on my team, magical people, magical beings and creatures that they are, they make it into an actual episode that people listen to. And it's always mind blowing when people are like, oh my gosh, I love this episode, because I remember recording it and I remember how many times I said, and lost my train of thought, and the producer and our team makes it actually into a podcast. So I'm like, I'm glad to have you guys, because I wouldn't be doing that. Tell me about, you also created a planner. So tell me how that came into life.
It was more, again, I needed something for myself, because I have, not only did I start this business with my apparel line, I have like 12 or 14 side hustles that I do. Sometimes year round, sometimes like just seasonal. So I work at the Renaissance Festival in my area, which is mid-August to end of September. And so like I needed a better calendar, a better system to, one, help me figure out what all my big plans in my life were. So in there has like, what are your like 10-year goals? And here they are, how to break them down into 5-year, 2-year, 1-year, monthly goals kind of thing. But also kind of give you plenty of space for like, I am volunteering for this over here. So okay, I gotta make sure I have this time off, or I'm going to go to this meetup here, or I want to do a pop-up shop on this day. So it's kind of, I needed something central that was like stays with me for the most part to keep everything together. Because whatever I have on my phone is just a normal calendar, which is helpful, but it's not enough sometimes. Yeah. When I'm not working at home, or if I'm out and about doing other things, it's kind of like, I really need this. And then I showed it to someone else because I like having a lot of color. So I had like 12 pens, and I was kind of like, I'm going to write this in pink, and this is going to be in blue, and I'm going to circle this in orange.
I love that. I'm a paper planner user myself, and it's really the same thing. It's like you have the flexibility to write in all your appointments, but then you've also got space to kind of doodle if you want, make yourself a little to-do list. Sometimes I actually put a sticky note inside the planner with an extra to-do list or something that I don't want to forget. And it's just so much better. But I've also, thought about creating my own planner as well. But I can't stick to a certain plan. And so I'm just like, I'll just make what I have work. So I love that. So twice in the last 10 minutes we've been talking, and you said that you wanted something for yourself and you realized other people wanted it too. I think that's great, because there's so many people that are like, nobody wants this. I was the same way when I started Proofread Anywhere. I was like, nobody's going to want to learn this. Nobody's going to want to buy what I have to sell. And so much of that self-doubt kept me from putting it out into the world. But you did the exact opposite. You're like, well, if I want this, then there's got to be other people out here who want that. And when something that I've realized in the last year or so has been, hey, if you've got something good, then it's kind of your moral obligation as a human being to share with other humans to make the world a better place. And I love the fact that you've been doing that. And I'm just so curious about how you got into all this, like before, because you've been working at home for about how long now?
I started July of this year. Well, technically last year, since it's 2018 now.
Yeah, I can't believe it, right? So how did you get into this? Was there a moment in your life where you were just like, that's it, no more, I'm going to work for myself, I'm going to make this happen? Or did you just kind of evolve into it? I know for me, I kind of got forced out on my butt when I got fired, and it just kind of slowly evolved into what I'm doing now over time. But for a lot of people, there's like a moment where like, I'm done. Like there's this really pivotal aha moment where like, I'm going to work at home, and then you never look back. What was that for you?
It was a very slow, especially burn for me, because at the end of college, I was realizing I wasn't going to go towards my graduate degree. So I started exploring. I went to bookstores, libraries all the time, and looked up like work from home things, freelance jobs and stuff like that. So while I was exploring that, I was working just part-time in jobs just to make sure I can pay my bills, because once you get out of college, they all come at you at once.
Yeah.
And it took a while. Like I tried writing, which I still do on and off. That's one of my other side hustles. I tried freelancing with a virtual assistant, transcription. Like I tried stuff out, and it took a good 4 years or so before I started getting kind of, I really want an online business. I want to have things that are like, I was starting to figure out my niche. Like it was hard for me to find it because I was kind of like I never really belonged in anything myself. Like I had like very specific groups of friends, but I never like quite like fit in with all of them. So I couldn't quite see myself into it. But when we finally bought our house, I moved too far away from my job at that point to really commute there. And especially for only working 17 hours a week, it wasn't quite worth it. Yeah. And I made sure I did enough savings that me and my husband were talking about. Like he knew about this with me for years. And like this was my ultimate plan. And at that point, we're kind of like, you know what? We're both kind of like, we're going to try it. I'm going to go for it. We'll see how it goes. and it's kind of been taking like little leaps and bounds each time, where my podcast, I'm starting getting like actual sponsors. I'm getting actual like donations from people. My apparel was sold in a couple of boutique gyms now. So I'm kind of just little things. I'm like, where are you all coming from?
Yeah, you just kind of keep evolving, and your business evolves along with you. And as you create things that you need and you get it out into the world, it just kind of grows. And that's like the snowball effect, right?
Yeah. Everything kind of came into like little epiphanies. So they're kind of like small, like bams on me, but it wasn't like a big, oh my God, like my life is ruined kind of thing. It was just kind of like, oh, this is really good. I should go this way. And like, but my brain needs to process it. Like I need to journal through and I need to like think about it.
Yeah, I think that's normal, planning and researching, but it seems like you really do trust your instincts. Is that correct?
Yes, I've been very big on that for most of my life. And it was kind of hard for my parents because I never went the way that everyone else did. I was the black sheep, which I'm perfectly fine with, that I get to work from home. I just sleep in if I want.
Yeah.
Like, oh, darn. I get to go grocery shopping when no one's around.
Yeah, that's the best part. I think that a lot of us say that we want to make money, right? That's why we want to work at home. We want to make money, whatever. But the reality is we want to work at home because we want that kind of flexibility. We want to be able to go to the grocery store when nobody's there. We want to be able to take a nap in the middle of the day. We want to be able to schedule our appointments with that kind of freedom. And that's what it's really all about. We don't really care about having a bunch of green dollar bills with pictures of dead people on them. Like, who cares about that?
I want enough to just be able to do what I want to do. I don't need to make $1 million. Yeah. At some point, if I ever get to that point, I will be confused at how I got there, but I would like it. I'm perfectly fine where I am. I want to grow a little bit more so we can take more vacations.
Yeah, I love it. And it sounds to me that, your business is evolving in a way that I would not be surprised at all if one day you got $1 million business. It's really, really exciting because you just keep following, and that following your instincts. When something hits you in your application, you said you go full force towards it. And I love that because so many people look and they spend so much time in the research vortex is what I like to call it. And so they are like trying to validate their idea instead of just going with it. You had evidence, you in particular had evidence that people wanted what you had. And so you just kind of went with it and it worked. And so many people are like, well, I need permission. You don't need a permission slip to live your life. You don't need a permission slip to start a business. And I think that as we get older, nobody really gives us permission to not ask for permission anymore because we're conditioned as we go through school. You have to have a permission slip for this. You have to ask for permission to go pee. You have to do this. But there's never a point where it's like, okay, you don't have to do that anymore. Like, so freshman year of college, people still raise their hand, ask for permission to go pee. Like, no, just get up and go and come back, be an adult. And there's really never a video that we see. Nothing shows up on our phone. We turn 18 or whatever. It says, guess what? You don't have to ask permission to do the things that you want to do anymore, even if it's just, fulfilling your basic human needs, like going to the bathroom or whatever. We just don't have that happen in our life. So Anung, I'm really curious about what your life looked like before you started working at home. What was life like?
It kind of sucked. I was tired all the time. Like I was trying to figure out what I was doing. And at the very beginning of my business, I was doing a lot of aerial training, but it's like working retail hours sucks.
Yeah, I bet.
Holidays were really fun because I was usually working them. Like I had one job, I had to get up at 3 a.m. to be somewhere, and I had to open the coffee shop at a hotel, and I had to be there for all these smoozy people that think they're so important and need their coffee at freaking 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh, right? Make it yourself if you're up that early.
Yeah, and or I have other retail jobs. I'd be there at 5 a.m. to help restock, or I wouldn't be leaving until 9, 10 p.m. because that's when they closed or anything else. So it was hard to see family or friends. So after a while, people stopped inviting me places because they just assumed I worked because they're off. That means I worked.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So people wouldn't invite you to things because they assume that I've been there. People are like, oh, we didn't even think to invite you because we thought you were working. So you're a lot happier now. I know people are wondering, what kind of income are you generating each month with all these different side gigs?
Well, I average about $1,000 a month. I say January to March is kind of my lean times, but I'll have August and September are huge because I get a lot of apparel for kids who want for back to school. And then there is my Renaissance Festival, which I work every weekend there. And I make easily $6,000, $7,000 in September by itself.
Wow. That was really cool. And I bet there's never a dull moment, right? You've got your hands in a lot of different things and life is exciting. And
yeah, I'm trying to keep enough revenue streams going, ones that are kind of passive. That's why my planner, I have a vacation workbook coming out soon. So I'm I'm putting things out there that people have been asking for that are just, you can find it when you're ready. Like, you don't have to get it now. It's there. You wait until you get a vacation and like spring break, get it then.
Yeah, that's super smart. I love it. So I'm curious about, a lot of people are listening to this podcast and we like to talk about confidence because there's so many people that are sitting and they're like, I want to do this, but I have no confidence. And they kind of look at the lack of confidence as a reason not to start. So we like to ask our guests about what it was like when they were first getting started. What kind of mental or emotional challenges or obstacles did you face when you were getting started?
Honestly, I can say I have never been confident about it, and I still am not. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no one in my life who knows what I'm doing. So I'm kind of just like finding random things in books and Pinterest and articles. I'm slowly starting to get other groups that are other small business people and bloggers and stuff like that and getting information. But most of them are kind of the same level as me, where we're just starting out, just getting going. We're kind of like, I have to bookkeep. What is that? Oh my God. Like there's an accountant for this?
Yeah. That's cool. And so in your application, you mentioned that you grew up with a gambler. We want to talk about money mindset for a minute here. How did growing up with a gambler in your life affect the way that you think about money?
It was very negative because it was always that sense of we never had enough to do anything. Like, of course, living with the one parent who was a gambler and finally moving on to the other one, it was still hard. Like, yeah, we were kind of poor, not like so much that we're like worried about not paying our bills or not having food, but it was just never quite feeling like enough. There was always like, you could do more, we could do more, you could ask for less. So it was always kind of negative. And I had to get around that and actually believe in the abundance. I had to start doing affirmations. I had to really, like, I love to read. That's kind of my vortex of like getting lost in, is I read too much sometimes. And I learned a lot. So I found a couple of really good books that really helped me figure out how to have to work the laws of attraction, like the actual steps on like the laws of attraction book is kind of like, this is what you need to do. But it's kind of like a vague idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally dig it. I think that reading books is the fastest way to kind of change your mental state, especially if we don't read and we don't talk to people, as introverts, that's definitely a challenge. So sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk to people, but I need to change the way I'm thinking. And a book is the best way to do that. So I pick up a book about mindset or Jack Canfield's The Success Principle and just read a little chapter. I've recently committed to reading for 10 minutes a day because for the longest time I've been saying, oh, well, I used to read for a living and so I just can't read, but there's no reason that I can't read for 10 minutes a day. And so, or write for 10 minutes a day because I've been telling myself for my whole life that I can't journal. I just don't do that. And like, I can do this. So challenging myself for 10 minutes a day to read to change my mental state because especially as it relates to money mindset, I grew up with a lot of the same things. Nobody in my family gambled aside from like scratch off tickets, but we had a family business and they didn't really know what they were doing. And so money was a constant struggle. My parents would fight about money a lot. And so I grew up thinking money is always going to be a scarce resource. And then I realized that I was choosing to believe that. And I realized, and that's why I'm such a big proponent on, hey, this is what actually makes you money. It's the problems that you solve for people. And if you learn how to solve problems, then you can make money. And you just realize how much control you actually have. And the more skills you have, the bigger your net is. And so you can just really coax more of that money your way. It's just a completely abundant resource. It's not the scarce resource that I grew up thinking that it was. So we talked about what your life looked like before you worked at home and you were tired all the time. And how would you say your life has improved since you started working at home?
Oh, honestly, I love it. I love being able to make my schedule up as I go. If I feel like I want to do an extra training session, I can stay an extra hour. If I want to just head into the office right away in the morning and knock off a couple things on my to-do list, I'm just going to go do it.
I love it.
And my thing, I like doing things early. Like in my mindset from the years of doing dance, early is on time is late. So I get things that are, like I want my podcast episodes recorded months in advance. I want my ideas for like Halloween apparel. I want it done now. Like I want it done in spring or in summer and I want to like figure it out so I don't have to worry about it then. It'll just be automated in the future.
Yeah.
But like, I love being able to, like, I don't really watch the news. I don't really care for all the gossipy things. I have my local news I watch in the morning. But like beforehand, I'll walk the dog. I'll get the emails and social media stuff out of the way. Like I answer a couple questions here and there, do a little bit of scheduling. And that right there makes it look like I do so much more stuff in life because I schedule my things like, oh, you're on Instagram like 4 days a week. And I'm like, no, I'm not. These are pictures from like a year ago or 2 years ago. Or I just took like 20 of them in one day and I'm just spreading them out over 2 months.
Yeah, I love it. And I just think that when you have that kind of flexibility, then you just enjoy your day more. You're not wishing for the weekend, right? And I always call it, when we work regular jobs or just jobs that we don't like, because some people really like having a regular job, right? And they're listening to this because it's entertaining, but they love their job and they can never imagine having an environment where they don't have coworkers and stuff like that. But when we get to a point where we enjoy what we do every day, then we don't have to wish our lives away, literally, and that hit home for me when I did have a regular job. I'm like, oh, it's Monday. And I would almost cry on my way to work because I hated it so much. And then I realized, oh my gosh, and I didn't know what I know now then. And I wish I did. I could just go back and whisper in my own ear and say, hey, life doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to let somebody else dictate when you have to be indoors, the best hours of your day. I just didn't know what kind of freedom I had. It's just so crazy how much energy you have to do more things in your life when you actually like what you do. My next question, I always ask this question. I can't skip it. I'm just like, I don't care. We're running out of time, but I want to make sure that we ask this because so many people come up against it. When you were starting your work at home journey, did you have people in your sphere of influence, friends, family, whatnot, that had negative things to say about what you were doing?
A good chunk of my family kind of did, more like because they're in the fear, because their mindset was like, you have to work at a job. You're allowed to move from job to job as much as you want, but you're supposed to do it until like the day you die kind of thing. You can like push in the vacations if you can. But most everyone else in my life was like, oh, okay, moving on. Like they just didn't want to hear it because it was like foreign to them. It took like a year for my dad to finally stop trying to get me to interview with other people, like, because he knows a lot of people in his community. And it's like, oh, this person has this thing. And, oh, you should go talk to her. Like, he'll actually like set up things for me. And I'm kind of like, dude, I'm almost at that point. I'm almost 30. Can you not do this?
Yeah. And I think thinking about their perspective, and I came up against a lot of that too. My husband and I were kind of starting our business initially, and his parents, and I use them as an example, and they're totally on board now, and they're super proud of us. They love to brag about us. But in the beginning, it was difficult for them because they had worked for the same company for 40 years, both of them, and retired and had great pensions and benefits, and they'd saved a ton of money and had grown independently wealthy because of the way they were frugal. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Yeah. But that's all they knew. And so sometimes just placing yourself and the perspective of the other person can help you understand and be graceful towards them instead of just kind of getting mad or offended and whatnot. Because I know it's so easy when people in your life just don't get it. It's so easy to just kind of say, you know what? Screw you or whatever. And I never did that. I just kind of held my tongue, but I know how hard it can be. And I know that people listening are like, gosh, there's somebody in my life who's always telling me that what I'm going to do is going to fail. So don't even bother and things like that. And it sounds like you weren't in that position. Fortunately, I wasn't either, but I know there's people that experience that. And many times we look at that as reasons to not start. Oh, so-and-so said I was going to fail. They're smarter than me, so I'm not going to start because they're probably right. No, do your thing. No. Who cares what the other person thinks?
God. I had some people, it's kind of like, who cares that they're smarter? They're not smart in everything. I don't care if you know thermonuclear science stuff. Like, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing here. You don't know how to sew a button. Shut up.
Exactly. Yeah, shut up. Yeah, just got to bite your tongue sometimes. Do your thing because only you know you as well as you know you. So I love it. How do you keep yourself on track? You've got your planner, but what other tools do you use to stay on track to make sure that you're getting things done?
I have this weird setup. My family, friends are always kind of like, man, you were organized, but in a crazy way. I have a giant year calendar on my wall, which has everything. I have clipboards. I have 7 clipboards on my put on wall, kind of like art-like, and it has worksheets on them, like what my podcast schedule is, all my bills for my business, all my bills for at home, my social media stuff, all my hashtags I need. I also have 4 giant whiteboards, stuff for all my apparel stuff, like where they're soling at and everything else. My habit trackers. I have a month calendar that sits in the dining room, so me and my husband can both see it. I have a little calendar that sits in my purse on top of everything that's in my phone. So everything I need to do hits 2 or 3 of those things because I'm not sure what I'm going to see. That way, it's kind of like, if I forget to put it on my phone, it'll be on my year calendar. I'll check it once every couple of days. Or the same thing as my whiteboard. It's like, oh, I forgot I had this pop-up shop in March. I need to go over my boxes and find all my apparel stuff and print out whatever things I need to do. So It's a very organized chaos, but it keeps me there because I have more than one place I can put things on. Everything's very bright, and I get to use like 100 different colored pens, which makes me happy.
Yeah. And I mean, it just sounds like having it visual is really helpful for you. And it really is not about being perfect when it comes to planning and things like that, or just whatever works for you. And so you should do the thing that works for you. Final question, Anung, because we're running out of time, and I really want to make sure I get this one in because it's the one I ask every guest at the very end, is advice for people who are sitting at home and they're like, yeah, it sounds great. Anung can do that. Caitlin can do that. Whoever our guest is, you can do that, but I can't. I'm scared to get started. What advice would you give to somebody who is afraid to get started?
Well, honestly, embrace the fear. It's there for a reason. It's your mind telling you that you don't have the right steps in, but all you need to do is find what those steps are and go for it. Jump with the fear and allow yourself to feel whatever emotions you have. Like for me, my biggest one was spite. My driving force was like, I'm going to spite everyone that said I couldn't do this, or that women shouldn't be in business, or I'm not a fashionable person. Like, why do I have an apparel line? I'm like, I'm going to spite you for that and make them as obnoxious looking as possible, and people buy them.
I love it. So just do it and, get your ducks in a row, figure out what your support system is. And obviously the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group is a great support system. We've got over 32,000 members. And so people are having meetups. Somebody in Work at Home School just organized a meetup in Seattle, and there's 4 people in Work at Home School all hanging out together. And so you can actually create your community if the people in your life are not supportive, and you can create that support, and we have that power. So I want to say thank you so much for being on the show, Anung. Where can people reach you if they have questions? And we're going to tag you in the group. You guys can talk to Anung right inside the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group. But where can people go if they want to get more information from you?
Well, I'm on Instagram as courageous_creativity. Again, courageouscreativity.co for my website, and it's Anung at courageouscreativity.co again for my email. I do the .co because I didn't feel like paying extra for the .com.
Totally get that. I've done the same thing. So thank you again so much for being on the show. We will see you. Everybody listening, go say hi to Anung on her website, courageouscreativity.com, and inside the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group. Thank you so much, Anung.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Caitlin Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at caitlinpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Caitlin says, mo skills means mo money.